All right, guys, welcome to episode number 2 of the Living in Tacoma, Washington podcast. We are actually doing some kind of special today. We're actually live streaming this as well on YouTube as we record it. Now, this isn't something that I would normally do, but I have my buddy David with me who has a pretty great presence on YouTube in the Seattle market. So kind of our, big sister up north in Tacoma. In fact, our channel is the Living in Tacoma, Washington channel. His is the Living in Seattle, Washington channel. So very similar. So I thought it'd be fun to kind of stream this on YouTube. So anybody that wanted to check it out could. So before we dive in, David, we're going to talk today about some of the major differences between Seattle and Tacoma. And so I just want to set everybody up. Why is David somebody we should be listening to when it comes to representing the Seattle area? What's your background? Kind of where do you come from?
Yeah.
Tell us about yourself.
Yeah, sure. Well, thanks for having me, first of all. And I feel honored to be on your second episode ever. That's awesome. But yeah, no, I've been in the real estate space for 24, 25 years, actually. So I've been on the real estate side of things for going on my 9th, 10th year. And prior to that, I was in the residential loan business. So I was a loan officer for 14 years. So I've been through the ups, through the downs, the good, the bad. And, there isn't a whole lot that I haven't seen in the market so far. So, yeah, it's been a lot of fun.
So what made you make that switch from the mortgage space into the real estate space?
I got tired of looking at tax returns and being stuck in my office. Yeah, that's really what it came down to. And it was, I don't know what it was, because I always thought that I would be good at real estate, and I was just scared to make that jump, make that transition. And it just got to the point where I was tired of being stuck in the office every day. I was tired of being just like commoditized by clients, and all they're looking for is the best rate, best fees, which is, that I get it. I get that. That's fine. But it was hard to really separate myself from the competition when all they're looking at is numbers and what I could do for them from a financial standpoint. So, I had some success with it. It was, it was a lot of fun at the time. I was young. I jumped into that business and was making way more money than I ever thought I would. And then after a while, it was just like, oh my gosh, I don't think this is the right fit for me. And then I made the switch over to real estate and been humming ever since.
Yeah, I don't know if I could be bound to a desk that long. I think that would be rough.
Yeah,
and
it was tough.
Mortgage space, and it would kill me, I think.
Yeah, I think the nice thing about it was that it was just a Monday through Friday banker's hours. I had my weekends off, and once in a while I'd talk to a client over the weekend or whatever. But that was kind of the biggest shift when I made the jump over to real estate, was pretty much giving up my weekends, because that's when we're out doing most of our business. So that was kind of the biggest adjustment for me.
I think you start a vlogging style channel on YouTube, so that's putting you out in the community a hell of a lot more.
Yeah, exactly.
That's awesome. Well, let's kind of dive into this stuff with Seattle and Tacoma. So most people listening to this, we've got some people that are local, but a lot of people are coming from out of the area. And David, I know whenever we moved here 3 years ago, well, first of all, we initially found the Washington area by taking a trip to Leavenworth, which is
nice.
Beautiful, right? And then explored the Seattle market and the Tacoma market. And one of the things for us, we're a family of 7. So we've got too many kids. We've got 5 kids in our household. But when I was looking at affordability, even 3 years ago, as COVID that market is kind of kicking off, when we were sitting down and looking at what we could kind of buy household wise for our family, it was like the areas that would fit, a family of 7 with our Midwest kind of background were, areas like Magnolia or just West Seattle in general, kind of a little off from the city, a little more, what I would consider more friendly for our family. And so I know when it comes to the Seattle and Tacoma conversation, I know that down south, we're obviously a lot more affordable.
Yeah.
But, if you're going into a tech sector or a job like that, and you're wanting to stay in Seattle proper, maybe one of those northern suburbs, like what are some of those areas that are more affordable that still really could be, I know they're gonna be a little more expensive than down here, but it could be comparable.
Yeah, so I think if you're looking for something kind of in King County that isn't like Bellevue prices or Seattle, then Renton is probably a pretty good option for a lot of people. And Renton can be kind of hit or miss as far as what kind of neighborhood you're getting in. So I definitely have my favorite neighborhoods in Renton, and then also the ones that I would avoid. But I would say Renton's a big one. And then kind of like what we were talking here before we got kicked off was Everett. I think Everett has a lot of opportunity and really kind of a little more in line with Tacoma area pricing. And, yes, you're not near Seattle, you're not near Bellevue, you're a good 45 minutes to an hour away, but affordability, you're right there. And I would say those are kind of the two spots that our clients are really kind of focusing on if they're not wanting to stay in those central areas.
So just creeping either a little bit north or a little bit south. I know I saw a
Yeah.
huge rush 2 years ago of people really that were they're set up, we're pre-approved, we're looking in Seattle proper, and then we got this rate started to creep up. And what I know
Yeah.
is a lot of people did pour down either Renton, Kent, Auburn areas. It started to move a little more south because they were going. Obviously, you can't go any more west, friends. You're just in the
Yeah.
water. And east gets crazy expensive. So they kind of started moving down into southern King County. Have you seen a similar trend through some of your clients coming in?
Yeah, but most of my clients that are reaching out to me, and this is just basically from past clients, my sphere. I get a ton of referrals just from past clients and repeat customers, but most of my clients are the tech, Google, Amazon, Microsoft, and they just don't have any interest of living outside of Renton or Everett. They're pretty much wanting to stick to the core. I would say a lot of my clients are either single or just starting a family, in that late 20s, early 30s. Maybe they have one kid. So I'd say that's kind of the bulk of the clients I deal with. They make really good money. They don't really have an issue with affordability. I mean, relatively speaking, I guess, it's a lot more expensive across the board, but for the most part, my clients, they just want convenience and they want to live near Bellevue or near Seattle.
Yeah, I think that's a really good point too. We look at like salaries out here. A lot of people are like, "Oh my God, the cost of living is, for Seattle, it's 57% above the national average, or down here it's about 22." And they're like, "My God, how can you afford it?" Well,
Yeah,
my 16-year-old makes like $26 an hour at Target part time.
it's
So
ridiculous, right?
yeah, the wages and jobs definitely kind of hold up their end of the deal, I think. And
Yeah.
obviously in the tech sector, I imagine that's one where they're staying pretty competitive with those rates of, buying homes in those areas, right?
Right, right. And that's the thing, is there's no shortage of tech jobs in the area. And I feel like during COVID and the shutdown, a lot of people were working from home, but like from the sense that I get, it sounds like a lot of the big employers want their employees back in the office. And so I think that's going to start pulling people kind of back in a little bit, because for a while there, 2020, 2021, people were like, "Oh, I can work from Olympia, it doesn't matter as long as I have an internet connection." And I think that's still the case for a lot of people, but I think it's kind of starting to shift back to the, hey, you need to be in here in the office, and a lot of people are wanting to be closer, at least with my clients.
Yeah, I think you're going to see a huge relocation potential there going into Seattle, because during the pandemic, a lot of people moved out, whether they came down here to my area or they went more north by farmland. These guys took their tech money and they said, I'm tired of being stuck in this 1-bedroom condo downtown. And as these companies now begin to pull them back into work, one of the things that you can't deny between Seattle and Tacoma, if you want to compare them or contrast them, traffic sucks. It's like one of the worst things living here.
It's pretty bad.
I'm really interested to see what that migration looks like. If someone is going to end up, selling their house into Holly and moving back into Seattle, they're going to get rid of the farm in Snohomish and come back into the city. Or, I expect some of these guys almost kind of put up a fight or just try to do a few days a week. I think that's going to be a huge one.
Yeah. And that's, yet to be seen. We'll see how it plays out. But, I was just surprised really when the shutdown started and people started to be able to work from home and didn't really have to be in the office. I thought at that point things in the Seattle Tacoma market would really kind of fall off because people would just a mass exodus and heading out. But it wasn't the case at all. That's when we saw the hugest increases in real estate prices, and the interest rate environment obviously had everything to do with that. But I was just really surprised at how much it grew during those times when people were able to take a exit out to the more rural areas.
It was interesting because it really was almost a 1-for-1 return. We were seeing people come into Seattle and Tacoma from Texas, California, Florida, Kentucky, and then like the top 4 states that people were leaving to were like those same exact 4 states. So it was not like we're just trading people.
Yeah, it's interesting, very interesting.
So let's touch on I think one of the more important things in my opinion, which is music. I love music, right? It's like one of my favorite things. And Elena and I, we travel a lot into Seattle for really like a lot bigger concerts, obviously. But we've the Tacoma Dome is pretty competitive. So when you're looking at those different types of things, like we have the City Ballet here, the Philharmonic, the Symphony Orchestra, we have all those different types of things, and of course you have the the opera up in Seattle, and different things like that. So if you're someone that likes to get out, go to a show, go to the ballet, do you think there's really much of a difference, first of all, in opportunities, and 2, quality?
Yeah. So with regards to concerts, let's talk about that. And I'll preface this with, I love Tacoma. I went to school in Tacoma. I grew up in Browns Point. So I know quite a bit about Tacoma. And, a couple months ago, Tool was in town. We had concerts to the Tool concert, and they were in Tacoma. And our group of 4 came to the conclusion that we just didn't want to go because we didn't want to go down to Tacoma and battle traffic. And it was mostly just because of traffic, but also Tacoma Dome is just not a good venue for a concert, in my opinion. But I have seen good concerts there. But I will say there's probably more opportunities for concerts in the Seattle area, which that's obvious. There's just more venues. You have Climate Pledge, you have outdoor concerts during the summertime at Lumen, at T-Mobile Park. And then just throughout the downtown, there's several concert venues like Showbox. We're actually going to a show on Thursday at Showbox. We have 2 concerts this week. So we're going to one on Thursday and Saturday. So
Who are you seeing?
On Thursday, we're seeing Head in the Heart. They're kind of a local band. I don't know, many people have heard of them. They're kind of getting bigger, but local band Head in the Heart. And then on Saturday, we're seeing the 1975.
Nice.
And yeah, so I'm excited to see the 1975. I've seen Head in the Heart like, I don't know, 7 or 8 times now. So, but they're one of our favorites and local band, so we support them. So, but yeah, I just feel like there's definitely more venues in Seattle, so it's probably not a fair comparison as far as like concerts are concerned, because what else is there in Tacoma besides Tacoma Dome? Like is there like the Pantages or something like that?
We have small, little lounges, concert halls, piano bars, things like that. But I agree with you 100%. I think, one of the best things about Seattle, obviously having the background in music for a really long time, which we've known, through the 90s and all of that. But the array and the options that you have in Seattle are really broad. Like,
yeah,
a lot of shows at Soto Showbox. It's a small little venue, great for, little punk rock shows and, things like that. And then go to bigger stuff at Climate Pledge, which is a wonderful arena for, concerts. There's a couple seats that are not the best, but
yeah.
we can help you avoid those. If you have questions about where not to sit at Climate Pledge, holler at us. And then I've never been to a show at Lumen, but I love the spectrum of just having, the tiny little venues and working up all the way through, a 75,000, seat Lumen Field is just awesome. So.
Yeah, we have. I feel like we're pretty spoiled in this area with all the music talent and everything that's come through in the 90s, the grunge era, everything like that. And it's nice to just have so many options around, if you are a music lover. And I never really liked live music or anything until I met my wife, and she was really into it, so she kind of pulled me into the scene. And it's a lot of fun, except concerts are just getting ridiculously expensive.
Okay, that was literally my next point. Yo, listen, I've seen shows. I came from the Midwest. The same show that's like $60 is like that same seat is like 120 here. Like there's been just such a huge jump. Like now, David, do you think that's like it's more expensive here than I really believe, like most places in the country? And I've seen that jump even just over the few years of living here. Like what do you constitute that? What do you put that towards?
I think you kind of touched on it earlier, with talking about how much even entry level jobs are paying in this area. And everything is more expensive, from the workers to the services they provide, whether it's a restaurant or a store selling goods, and just everything is more expensive. The workers are making more money, and concerts in particular, I'm sure security and everything else is just way more expensive, and it's just across the board just ridiculous and getting out of hand. And I don't know if there's like an end in sight, because it feels like I don't feel like prices are ever going to pull back. I just feel like people get used to a certain number that they're paying, and then yes, it might slow down for a while, but it's really frustrating, because at least I personally feel like I'm just getting gouged at every turn, and it's just, it's not fun to buy some of this stuff that you have to buy. But and that's what makes it a little bit tough when you're looking at the fun stuff, when you're going out and you're, going to the concerts, going to sporting events. And, it's just like a lot of people are probably going to just kind of stop doing that stuff, especially with, the TV experience, being able to watch that stuff on your TV. So I don't know. I think it's going to hurt them in the long run, the prices of everything. And, we'll see.
Yeah. So for some perspective, about a year ago, Rod Wave came and performed at Climate Pledge, and I bought tickets for $120. And then my 16-year-old just told me about Zach Bryan playing at the Tacoma Dome.
Mm-hmm.
Same basic bought was $400 a ticket.
Oh,
Dude,
ridiculous.
here's the thing. I don't care if you live on the East Coast, the West Coast, the Midwest. If you got to pay $400 to take your 16-year-old to a concert, that means you also have to go, because you can't just like drop it off in a major city, right? So that turns into $1,200, which is just, it's just ludicrous. And I agree with you. I know we've retracted a little bit, and we're working on buying some properties in the Midwest and whatnot. So the thing is, we go out and eat right now. We're spending $200+ on a nice dinner. Like we're having an experience. But dude, Chick-fil-A is like $40 right now. Like what, for two people?
Yeah,
right.
We can't get through the McDonald's drive-through without spending $50. It's ridiculous. And and like concert prices like that, the concert we're going to on Saturday, the 1975. Not many people have probably even heard of the 1975, right? They're a smaller group probably. And I just out of curiosity, I asked my wife the other day, like, hey, how much were those tickets? $150 a ticket for the 1975. I was like, oh my God, we're paying $300 to go see a group that I know like one song from. Like, it's ridiculous.
And you're probably not even sitting right up front or anything.
They're not even that good. Yeah. We don't have like VIP backstage passes or anything.
So with that, if you're looking at either moving out to Seattle, or you're looking at moving to Tacoma, like what are some things that you're advising people to like prepare for or to get ready for? Because here's what I will tell you: when we made the move, we knew homes are more expensive, right? Like a quick search shows you that homes are more expensive. We'd seen the CNN stories about gas prices, but I just got completely obliterated. Like my savings just diminished to nothing. So, as we're looking at moving out this way, like what are some things when it comes to cost of living, like either you recommend to kind of offset that pain or maybe at least prepare for it?
I just would tell people that I hope you're making a lot more money, because that's really what it comes down to. You're going to be paying more in this area. Like, I think one of the really good resources that I usually use for when I'm doing like research on my videos and stuff like that is a website called bestplaces.net. And I know salary.com has like similar comparisons, but you can compare cost of living for certain cities, and it breaks it down into categories from housing prices to transportation to utilities, everything like that. And it's tough because you're going to be paying more for just about everything, except for utilities. Really, utilities you're going to be saving a little bit of money on, but it's negligible because of everything else you're paying way more for. So if you're not making 30, 40, 50% more than where you're coming from, then it's going to be really, really tough for you.
Yeah. We got a couple questions here popping in. Number one, Anthony says, I have a question. I'm from California and I work at PepsiCo. Shout out to you. I'm planning to move to Washington State. What should I do? Buy the house first or ask for my transfer?
Well, you got to hope you have a job here, right?
Yeah, I mean, coming from the mortgage space, I think it's pretty safe to say like you're going to need to have a job before you get here.
Yeah, because if you don't, if you buy the house, more than likely you're buying it as owner occupied, and you're signing an occupancy agreement with all of the paperwork that you signed to buy your house. And if something were to fall through with your job transfer, now all of a sudden you would either be, if you're using it as a second home, that's one thing, but more than likely you would probably either be, renting it out or selling it, of course. But if you're renting it out, then, you need to refinance the loan into an investment loan, which is going to be a little bit higher rate. So I would say make sure you get your job transfer in line first and then buy the house.
Yeah, and all these, we are so used to people moving in and out and taking, especially the tech industry, with taking jobs from out of the area and moving here, that just because you have boots on the ground doesn't mean we can't get it to work for you. You got to align it. And and I think David would agree. I think the first thing you need to do is you've got to talk to a good lender. So
Yeah.
if numbers are on here. If you're, if you can see the screen, it's out at the bottom. Cell phone's 253-225-2395. Hit me up. I can direct you towards a lender there. But yeah, definitely agree 100%. Get the transfer. And we got one more before we move on to the next thing, which says, it's from a Facebook user, said, I heard Seattle's great for polka music. Care to comment? Pass it off to you, David.
Man, I don't even know if I could tell you what polka music is, if I'm being honest. I mean, I feel like I could like hum a tune in my head and that might be polka music, but I have no idea on that one. That's a really good question.
All I think about is the mom from Home Alone when she misses the plane and she's got to
John
ride.
Candy.
Yeah, she's got to ride with John Candy all the way home. So that is that's all.
That's right. That's right. Okay.
All right. So
that was probably the first and last time I thought about polka music.
In a long time, exactly. I'm gonna watch Home Alone
Yeah.
tonight. Christmas time to turn that on.
That's
okay,
right.
so the next thing I think, we're talking about everything being really expensive. So one of the best things about living here in general is ways to kind of move around that and still have fun. And so some of that is, taking advantage of all of our outdoor opportunities that we have. Like we have great parks in both Seattle and Tacoma. We're close to Mount Rainier, so when you and your family are out, like, how do you guys take advantage of the outdoors up there?
Yeah. We're really blessed in this part of the world that we live in with all the outdoor activities, and and it's not just during the summertime either. You can get out, and the nice thing about where we live is that within 2 hours of any direction, you have like completely different landscape, right? So if you head 2 hours to the west, you are at the coast, and you head 2 hours to the east, you are over in Eastern Washington in a desert climate. And we really enjoy getting over to Eastern Washington as much as possible. We have family over there, but we also just really like Lake Chelan. Lake Chelan is a great spot to visit. We try to get there like 2 or 3 times a year. And if we're talking more local here, what we like to do is, we're probably 90% of the time wrapped up in sports. So it's a little bit tough for us. Both daughters are heavily involved in sports. So it makes it a little bit more difficult because I'm not kidding you, 6 or 7 nights out of the week, we are doing something sports related, which is a lot of fun, but doesn't leave a lot of extra time to do other stuff. So, but there are just a ton of parks in the area. I mean, that's the thing, is every city in the whole Puget Sound region has like really, really good parks. And I can remember that when our 2 little girls were growing up. I mean, what's the one thing you want to do with kids? Get their energy out, right? There's no shortage of opportunity to take them, play, get the energy out. And there's also like a lot of like indoor, like gym type stuff for kids to do if you're looking for activities for kids. But yeah, unfortunately right now we're pretty much in sports mode.
I get that 100%. We just did football season with Finley, my 8-year-old, and I really felt like that consumed my entire life. In fact, as a dad, I kind of literally made a point to myself where I was like, look, you're the man, you run this house, like, this is your castle, so this family cannot be consumed by one kid's sports.
Right.
And once I put that mission on myself, it was a battle to make it happen. What meant was we had to basically deal with that, plus add on more stuff for the rest of the kids and the family. So I actually got, I think, more exhausted. But when it was just all football, man, I was burning out so bad and so fast. So yeah, definitely. One there, and I like what you said there. I think no matter where you're at, kind of in the Puget Sound, it's all comparable. I mean, like we've got, Point Defiance Park, and if you ask anyone in Tacoma, it's very comparable to, Central Park in size and amenities. You got just beautiful playgrounds, trails. You got the Point Defiance Zoo, the aquarium. Basically, all down Ruston is just a bunch of different parks.
Yeah.
But at the same time, when I go to Seattle, it's the same exact way. When I go to Issaquah, it's the same way. This entire area is really just predicated on being beautiful and
Yeah.
outdoors and mountains. And honestly, even when you're playing sports, you know, Finley, when we would travel around to go to all these different football fields and stuff, you had incredible different viewpoints at these fields.
Yeah.
There's a small town here called Ording, Washington, and literally Mount Rainier sits like in the field goal post. Like it is sick, and the whole backside is just covered with the Cascades. And so I think if you're comparing outdoor opportunities between Seattle and Tacoma, I think I'm really going to call it a wash. I mean, there's Japanese gardens at both. There's saltwater beaches at both. Lots of waterfronts. Like I think really no matter what, you can really find yourself in a place where you're going to be happy outdoors.
Yeah, most definitely. And I will say the Point Defiance Aquarium is probably like the nicest aquarium that I've been to in this area. That is just incredible. I love the Point Defiance Zoo, but the aquarium is just top notch. It's awesome.
Good. Now, one thing that I gotta give Seattle like a little bit of props to, and of course it is a bigger city, so you take that into account when you're moving. Is Seattle is considerably more walkable in my opinion. I really don't want to be walking up some of them hills. I'm gonna be honest with you. But you know, like we do have like Museum Row. You know, you can walk kind of that area downtown by like the LeMay Car Museum, the Children's Museum. The art museums there, the Museum of Glass, like the Foss Waterway, all of that is a very walkable area. And then obviously down at Point Ruston, that's like the best walkable area. Like, dude, I love Point Ruston. Let's go to Ice Cream Social and grab an ice cream cone and then like walk down by the water, and like the seals are always playing like right there. They're so used to people that the seals are coming up. But I will say that when I'm in Seattle, to be honest with you, I don't know if it's more walkable or that I just don't want to pay more for parking, so I'm willing to walk further.
Well, there's probably more in, it's a little more densely populated, I guess, downtown Seattle, and there's more to do within walking distance, I guess, and especially the waterfront. The waterfront, it's been revitalized and is pretty incredible down there now. I mean, if you've been here 3 years, right, Austin?
Yep, 3 years.
I don't think you probably saw the waterfront before it was redone, but like it's been completely redone, and like it's incredible. So it's a fun place to hang out. And it is pretty hilly though, I will say. Once you get up away from the waterfront, you're pretty much on the side of a hill. And I don't think some people realize that about Seattle, is just how hilly it is everywhere. And it's makes it a little bit tougher to get around, especially in inclement weather, I guess, snow, ice, stuff like that.
Yeah.
But yeah, there's Seattle Center, obviously Queen Anne, lots of walkable stuff. So I guess it just depends on what part of the city you're in. And, there's just a lot to do. And I think, just being a bigger city, it's not really a fair comparison, I guess.
No, I'm 100% agree with you. I think it's two different worlds. It's a small city compared to a major metro.
Yeah.
But yeah, I love getting around in Seattle and just getting out, walking around. If you're not from here, like we don't really use umbrellas or raincoats. We just kind of throw a hoodie up and we just kind of truck around. One of the things that I would have to say with Seattle and this kind of question I have for you is, we obviously kind of touched on Seattle's booming tech market. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
So here in Tacoma, we really obviously the Port of Tacoma creates like 100,000 jobs a year, that's incredible. Clients that, work out of that area. Shout out to Ryan Morris, my guy out there. And we also have, great healthcare. And obviously JBLM is a huge driver.
Yeah.
One of the things I've been seeing more and more and more is people that are willing to move down here. We talked about it a little bit earlier, and commute up for those tech jobs now that they're kind of coming back into play. So as we look at like Amazon, Microsoft, T-Mobile, and all of that with, just constant like STEM growth in the area. My question to you is, do you think that you're going to see, because we're seeing a lot of East Side office space being given up, right? We're seeing Bellevue, that all it's going away. With more and more people in the tech industry moving down this way, do you think tech is going to pull down this way? Or do you think people are going to be just stuck kind of commuting up there?
I don't think there's any doubt that Tacoma is going to see more, growth in the, having a tech presence in Tacoma. I feel like, and I can't quote specifics or anything like that, but I from what I've heard, Tacoma is just a lot more business friendly towards big companies like that. Like I know that Seattle has really gotten as much as they can out of Amazon, out of, all these companies that set up. And I know Tacoma has made a concerted effort to make it more attractive for companies to set up shop there. So I would say that I think it's a no-brainer. I think that the opportunity is there, and I'd be surprised if it wasn't already in the works, but that's just my guess.
Yeah, that jumpstart Seattle payroll tax for those big companies, I think it's got to be a huge hit.
Yeah.
I mean, especially like I said, a bigger company like Amazon, that is going to be a massive punch. And, that tax rate, looking at right now, that tax rate ranges from 0.7 to 2.4%. It's projected to, just basically roll into the city's budget. So the city's just kind of pocketing that and enjoying themselves. And you're absolutely right. Like not only to like larger businesses, but Tacoma is super, super friendly to small business. And we have a very, very tight knit small business community between like the Tacoma markets, downtown Tacoma partnership. So there's a really big push for, local companies to grow and expand. And the really neat thing about it is you see the community really pour back into those smaller merchants, smaller companies. Like I've been shocked since we moved out here and opened this real estate company at how like advocating people are for us. Like once they're like your friend or once they've used your business and they're happy, man, like that's it forever. That's your people. For an area that people say, oh, the Seattle Freeze, no one likes people, they're rude. I can tell you, I don't know very many people that are, probably more loyal than people that live in this area.
You're right. And that kind of is a testament to you in doing a good job taking care of them, because I'm sure that's not the case for everybody, because, and I've been fortunate enough to kind of have the same experience. And, it's when you're mentioning like the Seattle Freeze, I feel like that's kind of starting to thaw a little bit. Just because we have had so many transplants come from all over the world, Seattle just isn't what Seattle was even 10 years ago. And I would say it's becoming more friendly and more welcoming. And, it's, I don't know. I think it's always kind of gotten the bad rap for the Seattle Freeze. And I think a lot of those locals, the longtime lifers here from Seattle, they're probably going to be the same way, but no one's outright rude. Everybody's pretty cordial, but I just feel like they're just a little more standoffish sometimes. But yeah, I mean, I think if we just keep on doing a good job, people are going to appreciate that and keep coming back.
Right. And that's exactly it. There are so many transplants in this area.
Yeah.
Like I cannot believe how people I talk to that just aren't from here. So there's really no reason to be rude because you're not from here anyways. You know what I mean? Like
exactly.
you're just another, another guy. Let's just run. I'm gonna run over some of these stats according to Numbeo for cost of living in the two towns, and then I'll have you comment on them.
Mhm.
Okay, so consumer prices are 21% lower in Tacoma as opposed to Seattle.
Yeah.
Uh, rents are 58% higher in Seattle versus Tacoma. Restaurant prices are 18% lower in Tacoma versus Seattle, and groceries are 35% higher in Seattle and Tacoma. So let's start off with this number one, just consumer prices in general being 21% lower in Tacoma. David, my take is I don't really see that, man. I don't see much of a damn bit of difference between the two towns and the cost of goods.
I don't know how you can. I mean, really, it's the same everywhere, it seems, and I don't know where they're getting those numbers.
Yeah.
You know, like
Rents being 58% higher in Seattle versus Tacoma. I do think this one, and tell me what you think here, but I think in Seattle and Tacoma, there is a big spread. But the
mhm.
house down the street for me is rented for $4,000 a month. And I know there's a house on the water in West Seattle that we stumbled across is rented for like 3,800. So, I mean, are they that far apart in your opinion, or do you think it just when we just take into account the two metros?
Yeah, I think that it's definitely. I would say it's at least 30 or 40% more expensive up here, and especially on the east side. Usually, like when I'm talking to clients, like I don't do a lot of rentals. I don't really pay that close attention to the rental market, but usually when I'm kind of talking to clients about it for a 3-bedroom, 4-bedroom, usually it's around $800 or $900 per bedroom. Okay, if you want a 3-bedroom home, you're probably gonna be looking 2,700 to 3,000, 3,200 for a 4-bedroom or whatever. So, it's definitely going to be more expensive here, but I think as a whole, our area, like I just did a cost of living comparison video for California and the Seattle area, and I think this was including the Seattle Tacoma metro area, and the median rent price for our area was just over $2,000, which isn't too bad, and that was factoring in apartments, condos, single family residences, everything kind of grouped together, just like what that median price was. And compared to like San Francisco, it was like 3,600. And then LA was actually very, very comparable to what it is in Seattle at, I think they were at 2,400 for their median rental price. But I think rents around here aren't too bad compared to like California, at least. You're definitely getting more bang for your buck up here. But, I think the rental prices in the Seattle East Side, Bellevue, Kirkland area are just kind of reflective of the higher real estate prices that you're paying, and they're naturally going to be more up here than they are down there.
Yeah, everybody gets really pissed at landlords whenever they find out rent's $3,000. But if you've ran a mortgage calculation on a $900,000 house, their return isn't that great to deal with your BS as a landlord.
Yeah, it's tough. It's a lot tougher for investors to cash flow these days with the rates where they're at, and they're gonna be charging more for rent to help pay those bills, and taxes. The real estate taxes are pretty high, so that makes it even tougher when you get that tax bill every year, and you're like, oh my goodness, it went up how much, and it's crazy.
Yeah, the rate isn't that high, but based on the price of the house, it's pretty
Yeah,
brutal.
yeah, exactly.
Restaurant prices are 18% lower in Tacoma versus Seattle. I know we have nice dinners. I think they pretty are comparable. What are your thoughts there?
Yeah, again, I think it's probably, I mean, what you're going to pay like $1 less for a cheeseburger down there or something. I mean, like, I don't know. I feel like it's going to be pretty damn close in no matter where you go in the whole area. I feel like you're going to see like big differences, like when you go over to like Eastern Washington. It seems like stuff is a lot cheaper over there. But and I don't spend a lot of time in Tacoma, but I'm down in like Enumclaw, in Maple Valley quite a bit, and I don't notice any difference in price for a cup of coffee or teriyaki or anything like that. Like I just don't see it.
Agree. Last one, it says groceries are 35% higher in Seattle than Tacoma. Now, I mean, is this because everybody's shopping at Metropolitan Market and then everyone's
I think that's probably it. We have more Whole Foods, we have more Trader Joe's, we have Metropolitan Market, all that. So I'm guessing that's probably where that number comes from.
Yeah, I can tell you that our family, we actually spend about this, even within, of course, there's 7 of us, again, just kind of putting that out there. With our family, we still spend roughly the same amount of money on groceries every month as we did living in Missouri.
Oh, really?
There's not been a huge fluctuation in groceries. And, let's say there was a little bit, we could have $600 electric bills in the summer and the winter because of how extreme the weather was. So if you take that, and you cut that extra spending off and you add it there, like it's still, it honestly kind of levels out. So, I think through our conversation, like the reality is you have a few things. You have more technology up in Seattle. You have more population. The market's a little bit more expensive. Beautiful outdoors. Down here, we have more military. We have, I think, more healthcare jobs. Market's a little bit cheaper, but in all honesty, you're really close to anything and everything. Most of the problems I feel like we have are going to be found in both cities. Like we didn't really touch on crime any, because I don't really know that like we're the guys for that. I don't have all the crime statistics and all that jazz.
I'll touch on that real quick. And Seattle is actually quite a bit higher than I thought it would be. Like the nation average, like from what I was looking at, the ranking is on a point basis, and like 22 is like the national average. Seattle was at like a 36, which was kind of surprising, but not surprising at the same time. And because I was actually comparing it to Everett, and Everett's like right at the national average as well. I was surprised at how much less crime there is in Everett than there is in Seattle, which, I think there's just a lot of property crime and everything in Seattle. But yeah, that's my 2 cents on that.
Yeah, still lower than Detroit, everybody. Still lower than
I bet. Yeah.
So we're gonna wrap it up here. If you're fighting the battle between Seattle and Tacoma, you're looking at everything as a big picture. Give us your 3-4 minute spiel on how to differentiate what area is right or for you, and then also let everybody know like how they can get a hold of you if they're looking to move up that way.
Yeah, and that's I feel like Seattle, Tacoma, this market, you have so many different neighborhoods with different character and different personality. It's really tough to figure out what's going to be right for you just by looking at a map, looking at numbers. You really have to kind of plug into a local professional that can direct you in the right areas. And I think the number one thing to do is just kind of figure out what your budget is first. Once you determine what that budget is, then we have the conversation of, okay, what do you like to do? Do you have kids? Are you going to have kids? You want to look at the end with the end in mind. You want to think big picture. And so I think just finding the right fit for each individual family or person, it's tough. It just comes down to having that conversation with them and seeing what works best, because, for what, one person might totally fit with the Seattle vibe and, being in a walkable city and, really just enjoying the downtown life, where somebody else might be like, no, I want nothing to do with that. I want to be in Snohomish, or I want to be in Duval, or, whatever, it just depends on what you're looking for your situation. So I think it just depends on what everybody is looking for, and it just comes down to having that conversation. Like personally, we live in Woodinville, which I absolutely love. I always tell people, yeah, I tell people, even if I had all the money in the world, I would still live in Woodinville, with a lot of other places, obviously, for winter homes. But Woodinville is just incredible. I absolutely love it. And the school district is great here. And it's just really a good fit for us. And all the wineries are awesome. We love kind of doing the wine tasting thing and doing all that. But there's so many different choices in the area. I mean, really, it sounds so cliche, but there really is something for everybody, depending on what you're looking for.
Love it. Awesome. Well, if anybody's wanting to move up to the Woodinville area up north a little bit more, how do they get a hold of you, David?
Yeah, my YouTube channel, the Living in Seattle, that's a good way to get a hold of me, or livinginseattleteam.com. That's our website. You can go there too. But yeah, either one of those places you can find us.
Awesome. All right, brother. Well, thanks for jumping on here with us. Hope you guys have a great day, and we'll be back with you guys next week for more Living in Tacoma, Washington.
Thanks, Austin.